What up is Marcus Dynasty Football Dads? We have waiver wires, we have injuries, we have a lot of decisions to do on a Tuesday. We're going to do with injuries first. We're going to give you a little bit, just quick updates. We're going to speed through these. Of course, I've done through sports injuries. I studied into sports injuries. I've been going to school, or I went to school for 8 years. So, Carson Wentz, multiple ankle sprains. We don't really know what that means. I mean, it could be in the inner part and the outer part of the ankle. If that is the case, then either Mini is going to be reducing his mobility or he's going to be out for a couple weeks to a month. He always seems to be injured, so I would just plan on having him out for at least a couple weeks. Another quarterback news, Baker doesn't have significant injury. It's on his left shoulder. He's a right-sided thrower, so that's good news. My guess is that they're going to somehow try to brace that left shoulder a little bit, and they're just going to continue to play him. Just know that he's not going to be throwing it 50 million times like Dak does. So we're just going to have a limited upside, but we kind of knew that anyways. That's Kevin Stefanski's offense. Amari Cooper, bruised ribs, be reevaluated tomorrow. We don't know what the extent of that is or what that means. I would just say he's probably going to play. Again, just maybe a slight limited ability with him. Andy Dalton looks like he had a bone bruise in his knee. This is Justin Fields. This is Justin Fields, who I have not. We're going to talk about waiver wire pickups. Justin Fields could be a waiver wire pickup in many redraft leagues, but we'll talk about that. Andy Dalton, of course, hurt. The San Francisco running backs, if you have a San Francisco running back, or if you're thinking about picking up Kerryon Johnson or something, well, these are the San Francisco running backs that have gotten hurt right now. Sermon, concussion. Elijah Mitchell, injured. And then we have, Jermichael Hasty, high ankle sprain. This says high ankle sprains are usually 3, 4, 6 weeks, somewhere around that time frame. So you have that. And Raheem Mostert's already out for the year. So, of course, San Francisco running backs doing what they do best is they get hurt. I'm trying to think if there's any other injuries that we have on the... Jarvis Landry officially on the IR. He's out for the next 3 games. So that's a kind of an injury also to note for Cleveland. All right, so let's get into waivers. And when I do waivers, I go a little bit deeper into these waivers. I don't do the own of 50% because I would say probably, especially when you talk about like ESPN stuff, there's got to be at least 20, 30, 40% of leagues that are just inactive. You'll see some of these, I would say if they're not inactive, they're very limited on some of the motion that they have in their in their leagues, because there's always like 10% of leagues that, even last year, it's like Antonio Gibson had like 11 touchdowns, and then they're like, he's only owned in 90% of leagues. It's like, well, there's some leagues that are just not paying attention apparently, because he's already a running back 1. So let's go through. Rondell Moore is, I believe, the number 1 pickup this week. 27% owned. He honestly, when you have a guy who's had over 100 yards this last game, I know one of it was a huge big play against Minnesota, and you don't see my skull stuff behind me, but I am in Minnesota, and I watched that game pretty extensively, and it looked like Rondell Moore was used as kind of what we thought, this short down, this guy that's going to be utilizing his speed. They're going to do a lot of drop-offs, a lot of even tosses. They're going to just do lots of random things. And Rondell Moore was this close to a rushing touchdown as well. But the helmet hit the ball, and he fumbled it backwards a yard or 2, but he was so close to scoring on that one as well. We're talking about a guy who, yes, is only 5'7", but ran a 4.29 40 and had a 42.5-inch vertical. This guy is an athletic freak, and Kyler Murray could throw for just 1,000,000 yards this season. So DeAndre Hopkins, clear 1. Kirk, I think you're going to have Kirk and Moore kind of switching this wide receiver 2, and AJ Green is droppable at this point. My next player that I'm looking at is Cordaro Patterson, and just for the chance of his upside, Mike Davis, yes, he is getting 60 to 65, even up to 70% of the snaps. Cordell Patterson's at 30%. But what Cordell Patterson gives you is kind of this running back wide receiver at the running back position. You were looking at kind of it's hard to compare because Cordell Patterson's unique, but kind of a J.D. McKissic type. And we're going to talk about J.D. McKissic as well, but I think Cordell Patterson is in an offense that is desperately needing and will be down by, because you look at Atlanta, their defense stinks. So when we compare him to the running back 2, which is J.D. McKissic that I would pick up, and he's owned in 36% of the leagues. Cordarell's 12, Rondell Moore's 27%, if you just care. So J.D. McKissic, 36% owned, but I would have him slightly below below Cordaro Patterson for specific reasons. One, Antonio Gibson is the clear alpha there. Mike Davis is not the clear alpha in Atlanta. There is a chance, and maybe it's 5, maybe it's 10%, who knows, that Cordell Patterson actually supplants Mike Davis and becomes kind of the bigger back, or becomes the more, I guess, snap percentage back. There is no world, unless Antonio Gibson gets hurt, unless they're down by 40, which is hard because Washington's defense is a good defense, that J.D. McKissic will take over Antonio Gibson's job. It's just not going to happen. Antonio Gibson is you looked at him, he looked like a really good rusher. They just didn't utilize him enough. They got away from the game. They started passing a ton, but they won the game, so what can you blame them? So my number 2 wide receiver that I would be picking up is Tim Patrick. He's the most boring name, but gosh, he is that wide receiver 2 in Denver. And at least until Jerry Jeudy comes back, you're looking at a guy that last year, 60, 70 yards. And if he didn't get that, he scored a touchdown, which last week scored a touchdown. So that's kind of what you're getting out of him. The next guy is Darnell Mooney, which Andy Dalton, bone bruise. Just briefly talked about Justin Fields, but Darnell Mooney is the wide receiver 2 in Chicago. And Darnell Mooney is owned in 47% of leagues, so more leagues than not, but some people may have dropped him, and I think he would be a really good addition. The next wide receiver, and this is my wide receiver 4, he is a perfect player for a fantasy team for a couple different reasons. I love when the Raiders play a little bit late because you get this kind of, okay, you're down by 20. You're even down by 20 in projections. You have a couple different players. Oh, you have Tim Patrick. Oh, you have Henry Ruggs. And Henry Ruggs is the player that I'm talking about. Who would I rather play? Henry Ruggs. Because he can score you 0 and he can score you 18. Tim Patrick is going to be more safe. He's going to get you the 6 to 10 points. Henry Ruggs is going to get you 2. He's going to get you 18. And more than that, he's going to get you the 2. But the Mecole Hardman's, which even more, I think, Mecole Hardman is like the poorer version of Henry Ruggs. Henry Ruggs is that, I will actually compare more to the Deshaun Jackson grenade type. Like, oh my goodness, he can get 115 yards and a touchdown just like that. Or a huge play. He has that elite speed, 4.2 speed that can just blow him by pretty much any defender if he gets the chance. So Henry Ruggs is one of my favorite players to have on my roster as kind of a weapon. Thursday night, you see, especially even a couple of these Thursday night games, you see, oh my goodness, I'm already projected to lose by 20, 30 points. Let's throw Henry Ruggs in there as kind of this dynamite, like, if I lose by 50, doesn't matter. But at least if he gets me 20 points, I'm back in the game. So I love Henry Ruggs for that type. My next running back, and this one, I really like Kenneth Gainwal. And there's a couple of different reasons. Kenneth Gainwal is Boston Scott, but the pluser version of Boston Scott. And the reason for it is Miles Sanders is a good, decent running back, but Kenneth Gainwal has shown to be kind of that really good beta right now, and he's been putting it up there with some of those touches that Miles Sanders has had. And Kenneth Gainwal is an excellent wide receiver and excellent running back, so he's a very versatile player. And you saw that when he was at Memphis. He was one of the best receiving backs, and maybe arguably the best receiving back, kind of up there with Demetric Felton, because Demetric Felton was kind of turned into a wide receiver. And maybe he's kind of a running back. And Demetric Felton's kind of a mixture too. But you are talking about a guy, Kenneth Gainwal, who's one of the best wide receivers, receiving running backs, you could say, in college football the last couple of years. And now that he's in Philadelphia, they've already been using him more and more. All right, so quarterbacks. Derek Carr, 22% owned. Did have a little bit of an ankle scare there, but Derek Carr, it seems like they're just passing a ton. He did really well against the Steelers defense, and if he can do good against the Steelers defense, I guess you can believe in him. He's got Bryan Edwards, he's got Henry Ruggs, and he's got the alpha, Darren Waller. And that's all that kind of really matters with that kind of grouping there. And right now, it just doesn't seem like if Kenyon Drake is the starting running back, that Josh Jacobs is hurt, they're going to be throwing a ton because Kenyon Drake showed nothing. And Josh Jacobs even didn't show too much, so that did worry me. It didn't worry me a little bit there. I got the hiccups now. All right, the next wide receiver or quarterback is just going to be Sam Darnold, just because of the fact that, he's got all these different weapons. He's got Christian McCaffrey. That's pretty much enough said. I think, what is he owned? He's owned 10% of leagues. So just as a hey, like that's an idea. My tight end one is going to be Austin Hooper. We talked about the short down throws. Jarvis Landry gone. So it looks like Austin Hooper, is kind of owned in more than 40% of leagues, but it's just kind of what we're going to have to go with, because the next guy is going to be Max Williams, and I don't even like saying that, but I mean, Arizona, he had his best game in Arizona in his career. And then quickly, Pat Freiermuth of Pittsburgh. Keep an eye on him. Rookie tight end. Rookie tight ends are what they are. I mean, you're not going to get somebody that is going to have 80 yards every game or anything like that, but he had a couple of catches there, so just a kind of deep, maybe pick him up kind of guy. Defenses, Carolina defense. I mean, if you look at Carolina defense the last 2 weeks, against the Saints, against the Jets, they have done really well. And so Carolina defense is actually one of my favorite defenses. And then Arizona as a pickup as well. So again, these are kind of the waiver wire ideas. I didn't really give you guys fab budgets on these. I just realized that. So I'm going to kind of quick run through some fab budgets. Rondell Moore, probably 35%, 40%, 35-40%. Tim Patrick, I mean, I think you can get him for like 15%. Cordell Patterson, probably 25%. Darnell Mooney, 25%. Henry Ruggs, I think you can get him for like 10%. I think you can get him 10% on the dollar. Jamie McKissick, 30%. Him and Cordell Patterson, I'm going to put right at like 30%. Both of them at 30%. Kenneth Gainwal, 20%. 15% we'll actually say for Kenneth Gainwal. Unless you're a Miles Sanders owner, then up at the 20. Derek Carr, I mean, for bad budgets, quarterbacks, you can just get a dime a dozen. Quarterbacks, 1%. Put $2 in, see if you can get them. I didn't even talk about one of my favorite wide receivers. Because he's Minnesota Viking, KJ Osborne. I would definitely put just a couple percent, and I'd throw a couple bucks at KJ Osborne. I mean, he's the wide receiver 3 on a running team, but he's worth a flyer, because if Thielen or Jefferson get hurt, then KJ Osborne goes right into that wide receiver 2 spot on the Vikings, which is a valuable spot. And Kirk Cousins, as you see, has been throwing a ton because the Vikings defense sucks. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace out. Take care.
Now turn up.